You'll probably hear a message.
Right.
So for those of you here, is it okay if I record this session?
Yes, of course.
So
Yes,
I
I
just need
don't
to.
mind.
Sure,
Yeah.
fine.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Great. All right. So what we'll do is I was going to look at task 2 first, which is you have to decide on a unit of competency that you wish to deliver the training for. Okay. Now you can pick any unit of competency that you think you can put together 3 training sessions, and they're not very long sessions, and the content you need for each one will not be that great. People think, oh, you need a lot of material, but in fact you won't. Once you have a theme, you'll see that you can in the 30 minutes put it together, because if you think of each training session, you need an initial beginning introduction. Then you have what you call the body of the training session, and then the if you like, the last 5 minutes or so could be rounding up, finishing off. That's getting feedback from learners, and then maybe introducing what the next session is about, or collecting in paperwork that you've asked for during the session. So we'll go through that in a bit more detail. So I've got an example which you can have. I just picked a unit out of business services, and I filled in as if I was filling it in for task 2. So the information in it is just an example, and it doesn't have to reflect exactly. It's not the same as what you might put in. It's just an example which will give you a direction as to what detail is required. Now I'll open up that example and I will share it with you on the screen. And of course, I'll send you a copy once if actually, what I might do is close it. I'll close it first and I'll put it in the chat so that if you want to look at it when while we're doing this, you might have it on a different device, then you can look at it at the same time. But I will share the screen with the actual document, but I'll send it to you now so you've got a copy. What are we looking at? Task 2. Okay, so I just put the file in the chat in Zoom, example for task 2 details, and I'm going to now open it on the screen and share it with you. You probably know by now that with Zoom it's a bit of a pain because I can't open the file and then try and put it in the chat. It doesn't like it, it won't load it. So I have to do one or the other first. Okay, let's have a look. Yeah. Okay, I'll share this file now on the screen. Okay, let's close that. Where's the shared? Where is the share button? There we go. Here it is. Now you should be able to see that. You just need to confirm that you can see it. Can somebody tell me if they can see it clearly?
No, we can't see it.
Can't see it. Why is that? Okay, that's great. Okay, let's try that. How's that?
We can see that.
Yeah. It's on a larger screen, but I can only magnify, so I'll magnify it a bit. I'll magnify it up a bit. But you will have a copy. So this is essentially task 2, where you start to decide which unit and what you want to basically do 3 sessions on. So this one, I just picked it from the business services about protecting yourself online, pretty basic unit, like a cybersecurity. And you'll see that essentially what you've got to do first of all is add in information from the unit of competency. So the first 4 items are just the information that you pull from the unit itself. So obviously you download the unit of competency and then copy the information in. It asks you to put in the application, what the unit is about, who it's for, the elements. So you just pull that off of out of the unit. You'll see the element names, and there's only 3 elements in this one. And then it has asks you for the performance evidence. So by now you'll be familiar with where you find the performance evidence in a unit of competency. You'll find it in there. And it's the key points, because the performance is essentially what the student has to demonstrate or the learner has to demonstrate in the training sessions. The other thing is, of course, you do not have to try and complete the whole unit of competency in the 3 30-minute sessions. You won't be able to do that. The idea is you're picking parts from the unit so that you can, it's like little workshops on the unit. You might think, oh, I could do this in 5 or 6 workshops. So you're only picking 3 things, so for 3 workshops to do. So you're not going to complete the whole unit, which is fine. But some people think you have to do that, but that's not correct. So in this one, it's just about that they have the people who teach this, the people who learn this have to conduct an audit on their computer and so on. So you put that information in there, the performance evidence. There's also a section for foundation skills. Now, have you all seen foundation skills tables in a unit of competency that you've downloaded? Anyone? They all watch your TV at the same time. No? So you have seen, obviously you all got your mics off, so you've seen the foundation skills. If you haven't, sometimes you'll download a unit and it just says foundation skills are what they say, foundation skills are implicit in the performance criteria. It doesn't have a statement table. But if it does, you put it in here. If you don't, if it says if applicable, that means if you can't find a foundation skills table in your unit of competence you download, then you can just write down that it'll have a little statement saying that foundation skills are embedded in the performance criteria, and you can just put that in there. Now here's the key thing, that what you've got to decide next is what statement for what you want the outcome to be for your 3 training sessions. So you might have an idea of 3 training sessions you want to do. And in this statement here, it's asking you, at the end of the 3 group sessions, the learners will be able to demonstrate what. And so you have to put down a statement that is like an overview statement. At the end of the 3 sessions, the learners will be able to, you could say, calculate the percentage of wastage in a batch of bread mix, or record the observations of a patient, including the following, the basic body temperature and so on and so forth. And in this case, I've got here, because it's about cybersecurity, it says identify any current and potential security threats to their profile, because you're talking about your online profiles. Perform an audit and carry out measures to remove any identified threats. So there's 3 things in here, 3 key things. And that relates back to the performance evidence, if you like, just because I thought that I'd probably do these 3 things in 3 sessions. And then you split it down. You break it down into each session. So at the end of the first session, the learners will be able to demonstrate what? And so in my case, it's identify the common types, delivery methods of potential online threats. So there's basically a statement, and you always start your statements with what they call, they call an active verb. Is that familiar to people? The idea of an active verb at the beginning of a statement? Yeah?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And the reason being is because if you have an active statement, an active verb, it means you'll be able to measure something. Because if you say, like I said, I've written here, identify the common types and delivery mechanisms of potential online threats. That means I can create an assessment task where they have to do that. And they will identify. And in this case, it's the actual unit of competency says they must know and explain at least 5. So that's what I would do. We'd have some questions or instructions so they can identify at least 5 potential threats. So they better write them down and explain what they are. So that's why an active verb at the beginning of a learning outcome is very important. The other thing that you've got in this statement, this learning outcome statement or demonstration statement, is you've got detail about what they identify or what they need to record or what they need to demonstrate, in like CPR, 30 compressions and 3 breaths. I forget now, and so on. So you can put detail in, and that becomes your benchmark for your assessment for that session. And you go on and do that for the other 2 sessions, right? End of the second session, in my case for this unit, they're going to carry out an audit of their online profile and identify at least 3 threats that may impact their own personal online profile. So it's quite explicit. They're going to carry out something. They're going to do an audit. Remember, they'll have been, in this case, I will have demonstrated what they need to do, or they will have a set of instructions on paper or something. And then finally, the third session is all about they're going to carry out prevention control. So they've identified threats, they've audited their own profile, seen any threats, and then they're going to carry out prevention or control of any identified threat to their personal profile. So you've got a sequence, haven't you? A nice logical sequence. And that's the other thing about training sessions, that one should flow onto the other. You have logical steps of information clustered together, and which makes sense. They relate to each other. And then at the end of session 1, you're telling students, adult learners, of course, because adult learners want to know the process, where they're going, why they're doing this, is it relevant to them, and so on, what the next step is. And so if it seems to flow it seems to work logically, logical flow of information and practical, then that makes for a good set of training sessions. Any questions so far? Let's stop there and ask for questions. Questions from the gathered masses today. Yep, anyone?
Oh, good.
I can't. No questions?
No questions.
Okay.
No, so far.
I can't hear exactly. Dar SH. Who's Dar SH?
Me, Roshani, sorry.
Oh, Prashani. Okay. Yeah.
No, I don't have any problems. Sorry.
Yeah, all good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's fine. That's fine. I should move this, change that. It's better. I can do that. So, the next part of task 2 is straightforward. Because as a trainer, you can identify the characteristics of your learners, and it's in a very reasonably general sense. We're not asking for huge sets of information, but you can see what I've written in. Just as I have an imaginary group, that these are the people that might come along to this class, that I've identified, and I've put various ages, 21 to 65, gender varies. No, I'm just saying no learner identified as an Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander backgrounds, because this type of unit, the type of course, it's open to anyone. It's a certificate 2. It could be something they might do at a community college or the TAFE as a one-off course, just as a one-off unit, because they want to improve their online cybersecurity skills and get it recognized with a unit of competency. So they've been assessed. Maybe it's at a workplace even. It'll ask about existing skills and experience relevant to the learning. So you're relating this to your learners. Whichever industry you're in, who are the learners that are going to come along to your sessions? Have they got prior experience in the subject and so on? And why is that important to know? Anyone? Why should you know something about the learner's prior experience?
So you know
Anybody?
at what level to pitch the
What
learn.
level to pick at? Yes, exactly. And what about other things? If you've got an idea for a session, and then you realize that the learners you
Draw on
come
their
along,
experiences.
yeah, you want their experiences. It's related to experiences, and you don't want to reinvent the wheel for people if they already know something. Or say you find out that all the group or know a particular topic, then you may not have to cover that in detail. Just check their knowledge and go into something else further along. So yes, it's that sort of thing. 'Cause you can relate to them, and obviously you can ask them for examples and so on for when you talk to them. So there's culture and diversity to talk about. Again, you might find you've got a varied a varied group of people in the room. It doesn't need to be any more detailed than this, 2 or 3 sentences for each thing. You know, whether you need to incorporate LNN support, language, literacy, and numeracy. Generally, people just write in there. They don't need to because if you're doing it in the workplace, the staff there, you already have a reasonable level of language, literacy, and numeracy. Be working in that job, so that you don't need any specialist support. So there'd be no specialist support required, and so on. The only thing I think about when I think about incorporate LN support in vocational training is usually at times when I've worked with English as second language learners who are learning basic computer skills or learning to drive using the online driving knowledge test, which I used to work with in the community college at one point, where they would need LNN support, just understanding what some of the words meant, for example, because they haven't come across them before in English. But most cases, what we're talking about on this course, it's unlikely unless we're working with a particular group of people who are such a low level of literacy, language literacy or numeracy, which is unlikely. Whether you need to seek specialist advice, we're saying no specific special advice is needed. That's what you'll probably end up saying. Now, key employability skills. Now, you'll see in the booklet or in our learning booklet you've come across, they call employability skills, like the ones like planning and organizing, communication, time management, and problem solving, and tech. There might be the 5. And so it's just asking you here, which of those, and perhaps all of them, may be used or may be demonstrated and utilized in the 3 sessions. It may be that some of them are demonstrated in 1 session because there's a oral communication, teamwork or something, whereas problem solving might be in the 3rd one and so on. So you just identify what might be used, and you relate the employability skill to the particular activity in whichever session it might be. So I put down here, technology uses this to protect profile from cybersecurity threats. Problem solving, identifies threats and finds a solution and takes action. So that's where that's come from. So it's relating it back into the unit. So they're using their problem solving skills somewhere in the session that you're doing. So identify and describe the workplace and work role, who they are. And then it just goes on to the common thing, learning resources. And you're going to have to do a presentation in one of the sessions. We'll get into the detail on that later on, but session 1, you have to use PowerPoint or even if you're using a Mac, use the presentation software that's available in Mac. I think it's called Keynote. So it doesn't really matter which one you use. You just have to create a set of slides which you're going to use in the first session to work with the learners and do some sort of knowledge or written activities. But we can get into that. Where the basic logistics, where is the sessions being held, what equipment you need, what hazards that there might be associated. So I've just said in this one, because it was a community college, classroom in a local training college, busy college, I'm saying beware of theft in store valuables on all times, but it's to do with the location. I'm not expecting you to write that sort of thing in it with yours, but it's the sort of thing I would say to the students if they came along. I said, make sure your valuables, don't leave them in the class if you go out for lunch or go out for a break and so on. But the general hazards, cables, trip hazards, maybe the seats and tables in good condition. Is the air conditioning working? Is there make sure the laptop power cables are not in a walkway, take down, anything like that you can think of that are relevant to you. Doesn't have to be what I've written down. Preparation checklist for the train at commencement to control health. Switch off phones. People make sure they don't put their bags or whatever in when people might walk, put them somewhere out the way, coats and so on. No trip hazards. Safety message. So you can have you can just write in that you're going to explain at the start the fire exit fire drill or anything else that you think is relevant here. It says safety measures during the session as relevant. Okay. And that's basically task 2. Oh, hang on. That's part of task 2, isn't it? I don't think I've got the whole thing there. Let me example for task 2 details. Now let me have a look at the next bit. Just a second. I'll stop the share. I'll stop the share and I'll have a look at the assessment task workbook for the rest. Let me check. Because there is more to it than that, I think. Yes, there is a new one. I'll scroll down to task 2. So we get there. Sections. Yes. In fact, some of the information I've got is, let's go back. And there's hazards. Right. Yes. I need to let me find the current version. So we've got the appropriate version. Make sure I've got the correct one. Yes, I think I've got an earlier version. What I need to see is the detail for the second part. So I'm just going to get that. Won't be a second. I'll just go and get the version from the staff folder. Otherwise, we will not have the correct information. Here we go. This is it. Right. I'll just be right with you. Yes, okay. Yes, it's been slightly updated. So let me show you this part, and then we'll be right on target. Okay. Let's move that out of the way. So what I've put in the chat, and you've got a copy of, is only part of what's there. The rest of it is here. It's been slightly updated. After that, seeking specialist advice, and I talked about the employability skills being applied. In the paperwork that you download, you'll see this box where it says, how will the following employability skills be applied during the session? And it talks about these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what you do is you basically copy those down below into the box and put a statement next to each one. For example, learning would be that that they have to. Learning might be that they have to like study. Learning for them, because it's a new topic. It's like learning as in what sort of cognitive stuff they're going to have to do. It's like identify online threats. So they have to find out about them and understand what they are. So it means, what new sort of learning are you doing? Then it's communication, whether there's any communication in your sessions, where they're talking to each other. For example, if it's first aid, they're doing CPR and so on. Teamwork, are they working in pairs, for example, in CPR? Self-management, it's just about them managing a task. Do they use initiative or enterprise? They may not. It might not be that type of unit of competency in the session. Problem solving, probably. Planning and organizing, probably. And tech, probably. To be something. Even if tech could be as simple as using a thermometer or a digital thermometer, or using the AED. AED, is that right? The defibrillator device. Switching it on and off, and so on. Okay. Now, we talked about the environment stuff, the hazards, but then this is the important thing. I want to talk about the 3 sessions. Yep, go ahead. Anybody? No? You'll see it in the tabs 2. The one that Ted, what did you say?
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Not talking to me. Okay. So you'll see that the sessions are split into 3 30 minutes. It's important that you do 30 minutes. If you thought I'll have, well, if you say short, quite substantial. If it's like 28 minutes, 29 minutes, not a problem. But if it's short than that, you might have to do an additional a few minutes of talking or discussion or something and send it in. Because I've had people do 19 minutes, 20 minutes. Because the actual unit of competencies performance evidence stipulates 30 minutes per session. Of course, the whole point is that you'll demonstrate you can manage a training session with 4 people for 30 minutes. So you have a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's an outcome, and so on. It's structured and so on. If it's like a 10 or 50-minute session, that's just like a little, coffee break, chit chat. 30 minutes is the minimum. It used to be 40 minutes or 45, I think, in the previous courses. So look, if you follow this, if you follow the structure here, you can't go wrong. It talks about a 10-minute PowerPoint presentation, because so the first session is about knowledge delivery. Facilitate discussion, supporting your participants to achieve a cognitive outcome. What I mean is, you'll have a 10-minute discussion on a topic. You might then have a question back and forth. While you're doing the presentation, you could even ask questions before you present a particular slide. You can ask the people in the room, a question before you show them the answer or show them the information. Because remember, as we said earlier, they may well have experience in this, so they'll be easily be able to provide. And the idea of doing that is that you start to stimulate their cognition into that particular topic. They call the schema. You're waking up the schema, like focusing them down on the topic that you're talking about. And so they might be drawing on their current experiences. And when they're listening to you talk and see the information, they're sort of relating that to what they already know, which in most cases, people that you're working with will have some prior knowledge of the topic, mostly anyway. It says here, in the last 5 minutes, your participants will answer questions using a question sheet. So essentially, you need to create a set of questions based upon the presentation or the topic you're talking about, which is the assessment task for the session. They fill it in and submit it. And if you have time, even if you suppose you can't mark it at that time, you can, in your 30 minutes, go over the questions. So you collect in the question sheets and you can then go back over the questions in the room and see what answers people have. It's perfectly legitimate use of the time. You would wrap up the session, and explain potentially what's going to happen next in session 2. Session 2 needs to be a practical. So these are broken down into theory, practical, and a problem-solving session. And it's important that you know this now so that you don't have to repeat. Because I've had a couple of students who had to repeat session 3 because they didn't follow the instructions on the problem-solving. They sort of skipped over it and didn't really follow it. But it's an easy fix, but it means you've got to get the people back and do the half of it again.
Sorry,
So
can I have a question, please?
yes, go ahead.
So let's go back to the theories. So
Yep.
even within that time frame, 30 minutes a session, if it over a little bit, it's still okay, or and like less a little bit, like between like 28 minutes to 40 minutes still okay? Just in
Yeah,
case
I'm saying
estimating.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm saying that the closer you can get, the better. There's no route cut off, but
Yeah. Okay, just
you
in
need to have
case
30 minutes. Yeah.
yeah, it's just in case because my staff, I'm having a meeting and I train in this session. So in case like it's really in tune with the topic that they discuss. So yeah.
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 Okay.
And then can I clarify with session 2 practical? So
Yes.
session 2, it had to be 30 minutes as well?
Yeah. Each session is 30 minutes. So you're a total of 1 hour and 30 minutes of you providing training and assessment
Yeah.
to the same people.
I'm just worried it's a bit full on the session for the whole my team. Because it is
Well,
90 minutes, yeah.
yeah, but what you don't have to do all 3 sessions in one go. I mean, this is the thing. You can do one session and then find an appropriate time, have the same people for session 2 and the same people for session 3. It doesn't say you have to
So
run each session
yeah,
one after the other.
so what if I do this because I have the whole team meeting, I have like more than 10 staff, and then when I train them, so if I do the theory session only, and then if in the practical session 2, I have this like or just a room meeting, like a small team meeting, am I able to deliver it in that group only? Or have
Yes,
to be the whole
you
initial
only
group?
need 4 people.
Yeah.
So you only need 4 people, the same 4 people, because the idea is that you're delivering training in a
Yeah.
consistent manner to the same people as
Yeah.
if they turned up for training in a normal learning environment. That's the
Yeah.
whole point.
Yeah.
So you only have to have 4. If you've got 10 in the room in the first session,
Yeah.
you only really need to have 4 people who
For the next
fit,
one.
yeah, the next one. But it has to be
Okay.
the same 4 of the same people from
Yeah.
that 10.
Yeah, that's fine. At least I
Yeah.
understand that situation because I'm just worried it's gonna be full on for my team because my team meetings got 2 hours and I come like this the whole training. This is a lot overwhelmed for them. Yeah,
So
that's why.
and this is
Yeah,
the thing, as a trainer, you have to understand how adults
yeah,
work. You
yeah,
understand the people you're working with. you
Of
will
course,
have
yeah.
to adapt. Somehow you have to adapt it. Either you find 4 people that you take
Yeah.
away for 30 minutes,
Yeah.
and just stick with those 4 people. Because I
Yeah.
think if you have
Okay.
10 people, it won't be that manageable, I think, being your,
Well, because my team, they really need this training as well. That's why it might focus to do the whole training for the team. But in terms, like I can break the session 2, 4, and 3 for different time for the same group, but it's less people. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. That's
Yeah.
okay.
So we
Yeah.
have to make
Thank you.
videos, 3 videos, Cyril?
You do, because I won't be there to see them. So the other thing is each session has to be videoed, and you have to make sure that the sound and vision, that I can see you obviously, and I can see and hear the participants. Now, again, I tell people you need to check your equipment. If you know the location of where you're going to deliver this training, my sincere advice is to set up whichever device you're going to use and test it prior to using that room and that location. If, for example, you are standing at one end of the room and you have the PowerPoint presented, showing on a wall or something, or it's around a desk, and you're positioning the camera, whether it be the phone or another device, so that you can see the table and the 4 people, and that's why there only needs to be 4 people. Your small room, you can see them. You need to stand there and talk to the towards the phone or the camera with the microphone, and also try to see what it's like when you move your head left and right, because I've had people talk and they then turn and look at the PowerPoint, and of course the sound is only going in one direction towards the PowerPoint. It's not going towards the microphone, uh, where the camera is based. So one other suggestion is that you have the camera and microphone closer to you. And I talk about a triangle situation where you're on one corner of the triangle, the camera and microphones on the other, and your participants on the other side. So it's like a triangular layout. It's almost like you're on an angle. I've got a document I can send you about that, but it's really important to check that they work. One of the other things, yeah,
Yeah.
go
So
ahead.
do I need to prepare the consent form?
So you need to prepare the
Consent form?
consent form. Well, you can depend upon
'Cause
your organization. I mean, you can just verbally ask them if they're willing
yeah,
to
okay,
be
that's good. Yeah,
recorded. That's fine. As long
that's
as I
fine.
hear
Okay,
that, I think it explains it in the task, but as long as I can hear that on the recording. But if you want to
that's
have a
fine. Yeah,
form, you have a form, and
that's good.
you put the names on and
Yeah,
say, I'm happy to be recorded, yes, no, and they all tick yes. You can
that's
you can
okay. Yeah,
scan that and submit that as well.
thank
That's
you.
fine.
I
Just
just
some
want to
proof.
clarify this, so that's fine.
Mm,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Um, So second session is practical. Now, when we talk about practical, it can be things like that they have a scenario that they have to discuss and put down a solution, or it can be a role play, or it can be doing CPR, or in the case of my IT thing, it could be they're looking for identifying threats and looking up what the common threats are, or using the computer and writing down the details. So they're actively searching for something, or they're preparing a document. So, they could be doing a basic workplace document, creating a Word document, creating an Excel spreadsheet. So when it says practical, it's all those types of things. It's a wide scope there. Okay. Creating a budget. So they're identifying items that need to go in a budget for a particular thing. Somebody did something on project management. So I know in the childcare thing is like the early years learning framework. I've had students get the class, get their 4 students to like prepare a particular learning activity and link it back to the EYLF. Yeah, for those, I think that's Yenis, that's your department, isn't it? Childcare.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you see what I mean? There's all sorts of various practical ideas or options available depending upon the unit that you
yeah,
choose. Because each one of those units you choose, they will have a practical component. There's
yeah.
no doubt, because there's always
Very, yeah,
performance evidence.
yeah,
So that for everybody. if anyone's not sure, then of course you can just ask, because you can end up preparing task 2, and I'll see that and I'll be able to provide advice and so on.
Thanks.
Now the third session here, the 30 minutes, it's not a continuation of the other 2 in a way. It's a problem solving. Now it can relate to the unit, it can relate to whatever vocational subject, and it can relate to the unit. But you have to make sure that you get these 4 questions covered, because basically your assessment for this is a scenario which they then have to discuss and come up with identifying these things. They call it a root cause analysis. You look at a situation from several perspectives. So it can be anything that is familiar to you in the vocational area that you're at. So if it's to do with childcare, or health, office stuff, whatever it might be. Then what I suggest, the way people run this particular activity is, sometimes people think, oh, it won't last long enough. But if you plan it out so that in the session, when you're obviously going to introduce the activity, relate it to the context, but have an example scenario first. So you go through one scenario, if you like, and answer the questions. It's like a formative assessment, or just a practical activity to warm people up, which is perfectly valid. And you then give them a second scenario, which they then work through, and they can write down what they think first. And then you can go around the room and ask for, as they say, their ideas, put them on the whiteboard, or type them up so they can see it, and they can note those down, and so on. You go through that way so that they get to work through the scenario either by themselves, or they could work in pairs. It doesn't matter. It's how you decide to set up the room, if you like, and how you decide to deliver that activity. And then they will submit that scenario and that paperwork, and that's your assessment activity. So essentially, the resource that you need to prepare for that is one sheet of paper with a scenario on, and those 4 questions with space for them to write their answers and sign off on. You can have other information, like examples that you want to run through to warm them up, to get them thinking in the right way, to introduce the real task. It would be the second one. So has anybody got any questions about that? So that's a basic overview of how they fit together.
So
Task 2.
can I with the session 3, is that one of the part of the task 3?
Sorry, one of the parts. That's
Part of task 3?
task 3. Task 3, the next task, is where you create your resources. So this is you're outlining here what you need to do.
Yeah.
And then, of course, what you've written here, you're then going to turn into the items that you need for task 3, where you create your PowerPoint, create your resource for session 1, your assessment for session 1, assessment for session 2, resource for session 2, and then session 3, the resource and the assessment activity, this sheet with your activity on.
So each section needs to have the resource of learning.
Of course, because this is the whole point about you're delivering group training to people who need something. They need a resource to refer to, for example, in number 1, the presentation. It might be some more details, because remember your presentation may only have key points, and you might have some more detail, and you can ask further questions, and they can use that resource to obtain the information.
Okay. Thank you.
It's like anything else. You have, like these units, you have an assessment and a learner guide. So the learner guide is your resource for the ITTA units in the TAE.
Cyril, do you have an example of any past assessment?
Yeah. Have a look at number 3. I've got something here. So that was basically task 2. I'll have a look at task 3.
Yes, please. Bit confusing.
And then I'll share the screen. Oops, come on. Let's have a look. Let's see. Let's have a quick look here. Oh, yes, here we go. Set of tasks. I'll share this. Now, quick share again, reshare. So, can you see that?
Not really. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no?
Yeah.
You can see it just a blank a sheet of paper. It says session 1 set of questions, name, so on. Yes, no, 3 bags full.
Yeah, I can see.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'm saying, session 1, you need a PowerPoint presentation, a resource of some sort. And let's assume I've got the resource, which could be, it'll have details about cybersecurity and stuff on. And then this is basically the questions that I've put together from that resource that they have to fill in. All right, about 10 questions. So you can see that you write down on it who marked it. That would be you, the date, give feedback to the learner. The other thing we should add on here is at the bottom is you can add this. You says it's you can have you have the little statement which you get. You can say I am satisfied. Whoops. Satisfied with the feedback and assessment result. And they can just ring it yes or no, and they can sign it, learner signature, because basically that's what you do when you receive a signature and date. I forgot to put that on there, but you could put that on the bottom of each of the things. Like first one, the knowledge questions. Number 2, the checklist. You're probably doing the checklist. So that's number 1. And say for example, here's my resource, right? Here's my resource for this first session. So when I say resource, the bare minimum you can have is just like one sheet of paper, or it might be a diagram. It just depends on what you think is relevant as a resource for your first session, so that people can answer the knowledge questions. So in my case, I've got, or maybe it's 2 pages. I've got a couple of pages that Now you don't necessarily have to create these yourself. You can take them out of a guide or a PDF or whatever it might be that you might have at your workplace. You can just, write on it, where it came from, so that you're explaining where you've got it from. Now, the next bit here is session 2. In this case, I've got here's the checklist. So in this case, I've got a checklist. So I'm observing the people do something. And it could be like they could be creating a spreadsheet, they could be doing something. In this case, they're doing their online cybersecurity checks. And so that's what the checklist is about. They're checking that the URL of the particular page is using HTTPS. So these are just basically the observations that I would have for my learners for this particular unit. Now, you might have a shorter checklist with less things in it related to the practical task you give them. You may already have an observation checklist that you can use, so you don't have to reinvent it from scratch. Okay, so it doesn't have to be as complicated as this one. but I can send you this as an example. Now, session 3 we talked about, here was the scenario session. So again, I'm relating this to the cybersecurity. And here it is. So I'm saying in session 3, work in pairs. Read the scenario below and answer the 4 questions. So they read the scenario, and then they fill in their answers for the 4 questions. And that's it. We can have the same thing at the bottom. You can have to sign off because you mark it, the learner's name, I'm happy, etc. Now, what I haven't got on this one is in the session 3, you don't necessarily need another resource, but you might well have another example, a demo example first, so that they feel comfortable. Then they can go and work in pairs and work on this one themselves. So that might fill up your 15 minutes in one and then 15 minutes in the other. So you get to do your 30 minutes. So you don't necessarily need a great deal of stuff to do in each session. It's how you plan it out and how much time you give people as you move through the session. Okay. It could be a good thing to have, for example, session 1, that if say you've got 10 questions and you find, oh, look, it's, you've got to 20 minutes, 22, 23 minutes, they finish the questions. So that's when you can get the questions in and then go through them. You can ask them, or what was the answer? What was your answer for question 1? And blah, 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 to go through them. So you can fill in the time usefully by getting them to go over the answers. And some of the students who might have the same answer or will think about it. Task 2, you can review the opposite. Task 2, if you have you think you've just thought of time, you can do things like review the practical task. Explain what things you think that went well, what things that maybe weren't quite done so well overall, or what do the students think about the practical task? Did they think they needed more time? What's their feedback? So, that could also be used as a reasonable way to fill in a bit of the time in the 30 minutes. And again, with the task 3, with the problem solving, you can go over the problem solving, and perhaps one of the best ways to get the answers out of people in the second example, if you've done a first practical example, second one is to put the answers on a board so they can see what types of answers people have given for each of the parts of the task of the problem solving. So they get to see what the other pair thinks. Or if they're doing it individually, you can get answers from all the people in the room. You've got 4 answers per question. So it's that type of thing where you're working with a particular task and you're using the time as as much as you can to get information out, provide answers, and give students time to do the task. So you probably find you don't need to rush. If you go over 30 minutes, that's fine. Just make sure that your device can record for that length of time. Obviously, most of them do. Nobody's had a problem so far. 1 or 2 people find that their battery died on them, so you've got to be, make sure that it's fully charged or it's plugged in. That's about the best of it. Let me show you a PowerPoint because there's one thing about PowerPoints, people tend to fill them too much up with information. They can crowd them, and that's why the resource is important. I'll just get it to come up on the screen. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that PowerPoint, or will I need to reshare?
Yes, we can see.
Oh, you can see it. Okay. Now it's not in slideshow. It's not in slideshow mode, but generally this is it's like in the editing mode. I'll try and if I do slideshow, you can still see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good. So this is again for this cybersecurity. Usually don't have too many points on a slide. I'm saying what the training's for on this one, what they'll be able to do, the outcomes, you'll be able to identify threats, protect their identity, and so on. So you can have a slide which shows the outcomes, because adults want to know what they're up for when you do a session. This is for session 1, of course. What's an online identity? So this is talking to them about that, and I've just basically used some of this what do they call it? The particular click and explanation for things. Now, you don't have to do that. You don't have to make it animated. It can just be straightforward slides. You don't have to animate anything. We go on. Ends up with the whole thing filled in. So I'll probably spend time talking about these things and then going through the bits. But again, you don't have to do that. But the main point is that it's nice and clear in small sentences. Now I've got a slide where threats are out there. Have you heard any of these? And we talk about cyber attacks, hacking, ransomware. Sometimes it's good to be able to click and move things in one at a time, because then it controls your delivery of the talk. I think a few like it clicking, but again, it can also be time consuming because you've got to click every time and move on. Yeah. So basically here I'm telling them what they're going to have to do in the unit, how pick a threat, so on. So they're giving them some work to do. Check your understanding. Finished. Oh, I didn't do too many slides. Just for an example. So essentially, whatever you put on the slides, make sure it's clear. You can use picture and text. They don't have to be animated in any way. Make sure that the color scheme you use is fairly clear to see. That there's good contrast in colors. If it's black and white, you don't do red and blue. You don't do red background and blue text because of the issues with people's color blindness, or just you can't read it very easily because of the way it's set up, that color scheme. So that's sort of thing you do there. So that basically covers task 3. What you need to do, what items you need. Has anybody got any questions about that type of stuff? I'll send you these eggs out. I've got these things in the chat, or I'll email them to you so you've got copies. No? Okay. Look, I'm going to point out some other things here before we have a look at 4. I'll send you this. Now, can you see this particular document? It's called Key Principles of Instructional Design.
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
So this came from another ITTA booklet, an earlier version of the learning guide for this unit. But talk about mental instructional design. It's the key thing you should think about. And I mentioned them during this time. Is first of all flow. You begin with basic stuff first and build it up to more complex, depending upon what the topic is. Relevance. You're working with adult learners, so whatever you're describing and discussing, or explaining, or providing information for, it has to be relevant to the topic at the time. So anything I'm doing here is only related to how to deliver training. I'm not talking about anything else. We're not talking about, what's going on in the world at the moment or anything. It's just like focus on what's relevant, because adult learners will just not be interested if it's not relevant to them. Number 3, activity-based. Don't overload the learners with big chunks of information in one hit. Break it down. And that's what you can do with your PowerPoint slides. Don't overload the slide. They say six points, 6 words, but that's 6 by 6. But if you've got 6 key points and they don't stretch for longer than one line, well, it could be 6 words or 6 phrases, and of course the rest of it is you explaining it. You don't put all that information on the slide, because the people will try to read it, or they just get lost on the slide. They're looking at it thinking, what's this all about? So keep it clean. It's basically to do with the cognitive thinking process overloading people. Ownership. Now it says learning is an internal process, not something imposed from outside. So they're saying learners need to feel in control. What that means really is that if you provide them with the right resource, the right explanation, and what to do next, that they'll be able to get to grips with the subject and feel in control in that way, that they understand what's going on, what they need to do, or what's being explained, and so on. They've got relevance. And then engagement. It says trying to make the learning experience as engaging as possible. So again, if you make your free training sessions active, even the first one, the PowerPoint one, where you've got 10 minutes of, say, you explaining, try not to make it more than 10, 12 minutes. Of course, if you can make it a little interactive by asking them questions before you put up a slide, so you get to see what they know beforehand. You've then got a part of the session where they're having to answer questions, the theory bit. And then if you've got time, you can then go over the questions and reinforce the answers with them. So you're embedding that into their knowledge bank, if you like, in their heads. So they're getting information that they've got the right answers, and or they're listening to the answers from others, which is maybe affirming what they know already. So it's just a basic set of information. That's that one. So if we don't have any other info in questions about that, I'll send you that info. The other thing I was going to show you was Bloom's taxonomy. Amen. Now, can you see this one? Can you see that slide?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, Bloom's taxonomy, action verbs. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is that it relates to your learning outcomes, the statements that you make for your different sections. And excuse me. And later on, when you do other units in this course, where you have to create learning outcomes, this may come in handy. Essentially, Bloom, gentleman, I forget Benjamin Bloom, he decided, or not decided, he worked out that certain active verbs focus down on certain areas of like cognitive, cognitive processing. And so Bloom had 1, 2, 3, had 6 basic areas where he said there was like cognitive processing at higher and higher levels of depth of use of your brain, more complex thinking. So you have knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. And depending upon the active verb that you put at the beginning of a sentence, it drops into these various levels. So, for example, we're talking about knowledge and you want people to remember things. You might ask them to list, 5 online security threats. So that's basically just bringing things out from your knowledge bank in your head, or name something or order something. That's what that is in that first column. A comprehension, demonstrate an understanding of the facts. You might use active verbs at the beginning of a outcome, so to distinguish between X and Y. The outcome, they'll be able to distinguish between this and that, because in that case, people will have to comprehend and understand what the two different things are. Application again is the same, just going up the thing. So application knowledge. So it could be that you're applying your knowledge to a particular situation. I was thinking again in childcare, where you've got the early years learning framework, and you ask the students to develop a learning plan for a particular area of knowledge that they need. So they're applying their knowledge and demonstrate they can apply it to a particular situation. And so it goes on. So you can read a bit about Bloom. I think it may be in the learner guide as well, but I'll send you this, so that you can use it if you need to. But when you are picking your learning outcome activity verbs, active verbs beginning, you can sort of see there's plenty to choose. And the chances are you'll be at the lower end most of the time. We're here at knowledge, comprehension, and application. It may not be analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, because those sorts of activities may take a fair bit of time, more than a 30-minute training session, because you're having to work and deal with what's the word? Have to work in more depth, so it might take more time and resources. But it could be useful too if you're not sure what words you might want to use as an active verb. Okay. So that's all I wanted to say about task 3. Has anybody got any immediate questions at this point? No? That's okay. We'll have a quick look at task 4, which is very straightforward. It's the session plans. And they're very straightforward and simple. Not expecting some big, long, what would you call it? Long list of things on those. Now, let me see. I need the correct version of the document, so I'll just reopen that. Sorry. Just 1 second while I get the file again. This is what we've got. Just bear 1 second. Just want to make sure I use the most current version of the task. Oops, not that one. Work-based training, face-to-face. So I'll have a look at task 4. And task 4, task 3. You can see task 3. I've shown you examples. Can you see this task 3 stuff on the screen?
Yes.
Yep. The other thing about this unit, the group-based training one, is that it will be linked into the next unit, which is to provide workplace instruction. And so you'll find that the videos that you record for the TAEDEL411 can be reused, and some of the items that you create in the TAEDEL411 are reused again, so you don't have to do them again in the TAEDEL311, because it's a lower level unit, and we've clustered them together so that you can benefit from that. But task 3 just tells you that you have to have a handout for session 1, a presentation, and an assessment. And the same for session 2, you have to have a handout, an assessment. So the session 2, 2 things. Session 1, you've got 3 things: presentation, assessment, and handout. And session 3 is really just, it could be a handout, assessment. So the handout's got the scenario on plus the 4 questions. So it could be just one document. So moving past that, you'll find that there's a form that you need to.
Sorry, I didn't get that. So for task 3, do we have to do a brand new presentation?
No. The only presentation, the knowledge presentation you need is in session 1. Task 3 is just you preparing the materials, which I, just showed you. So task 3 is saying, like, make sure you've got to prepare a presentation for session 1, which is a knowledge session. So you've got presentation plus the handout, which you might have for that, and the assessment. And it could be just the handout and the assessment could be just one A4 Word document, couldn't they? Set of questions on one, a set of information on the other. So that's what they mean by a resource or a handout.
So can I confirm with task 3, you just submit the PowerPoint and the resource handout resource include with the questions in the checklist and questions in there.
From task 2.
That task 3.
If task 2 is your basic overview of preparing task. Sorry,
But
task 2,
we don't use the same PowerPoints.
I'm talking about
You
the
don't need
task
3
3.
PowerPoints, no. Only 1 PowerPoint in session 1. If you want to use some slides in session 2, for example, which is the practical, you can, but don't make it a big part of the session. It's more of a practical, activity type thing. But you may need, maybe you present something like a diagram because they need to see the diagram in order to carry out the activity, that sort of thing. But not a full-blown 10-minute presentation.
For task 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Task 3, yeah. So for session 2, think of your 3 training sessions. Only one of them needs a proper PowerPoint presentation. That's session 1.
Yeah.
Session 2 and 3, you might use a slide for some reason. That's fine, but don't make it a full-on presentation for those 2.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll soon tell you because you need to upload these items prior to going on doing task 5, which is the delivery. I need to see this stuff because people who don't, 1 or 2 students have gone right to gone just to go to task 5 without telling me, and they just throw some stuff at me after that, the videos. Then I say, well, I haven't even seen what you were supposed to be doing. So you need to get task 2 done, task 3, and task 4, which is just the session plans, and they're very basic. If you look in your if you download the document, I'll show it to you here. It basically outlines, it gives you the template, and you can see they're quite small. Session 1, it tells you it's theory based. It's the theory one. You write in your safety information of what for that particular location. If you need to have high vis or need to work boots or cables on the floor, what equipment you're going to use, resources, and so a lot of this stuff you can copy and paste from task 2. And then just the sections, you can see it's got introduction, icebreaker, presentation. This is for session 1. Facilitation of discussion, because you talk about the presentation and then maybe having a discussion about the content before you give them the questions to do. Okay. And it tells you what you need, resources. So it says task 3, session 1, you need a presentation. Task 3, session 1, you need a handout. Task 3, session 1, you need the assessment, a set of knowledge questions. And then conclusion and overview of next session is what you write in, what the next session is about, a very brief, and then a wrap up, get some feedback. And down on the left-hand side is where you can put the timing in. If it's 30 minutes, so you might say, oh, look, introduction, I've got 3 minutes. Icebreaker, maybe 3 minutes. Presentation, 10 minutes. Discussion, there's, let's say there's 8 minutes. And you want some time left for this. So let's say that's another 8. Even if it goes over 30, it doesn't matter. Conclusion, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. And you can add them up and see where you are. And if it runs over 30, that's okay. If it's 32, 33, 35, but as long as you've got, you're in control, like you're not rushed and you know why you're here at that point and you just wrap up. That's fine. I'm not going to penalize anybody for being over 30 minutes. Session 2 is similar. You've got the layout for you. It says recap last session. So it tells you at the beginning of the session 2, just very briefly link back to session 1, what you did in the knowledge, very briefly. Then you introduce the practical task, whatever the task might be that's related to your unit and your students. You've got a handout again, assessment. So basically it's only thinking you're going to have some introduction, it's an instruction, demonstrate the task, confirm understanding. So you might well be that you are demonstrating the task first. That could be the CPR, or it could be the first aid, or it could be something else. Might be showing them something on paper that they will then create themselves through whatever means that you've set up. What that is. And then 3, the problem-solving activity. Again, the structure's the same. Introduce activity, facilitate it, get it going. Then conclusion, seek feedback from participants, and that's it. So they're very small session plans. They don't have to have massive detail. It's just an overview, really, of the structure. Because once you've got your once you've got past 3 doing it, you've developed all your resources. You'll find that you'll probably well have in your head a pretty good idea of how you're going to run the sessions, because you've already created all the materials and you'll be thinking about it. And then task 4 is just planning it on paper so you can formalize it. And then 5, off you go. Task 5 is carrying out the sessions. And if you look at task 5, you'll see the observation checklist that I fill in, but it's there for you to see what is included. Yeah. Okay. So I will stop there and have last 10 minutes if you want for questions, any questions whatsoever. I'll stop the share. So if you've got any questions, only a few of you left, that's okay.
I think it's a bit confused. Once I figured out what's going on, I might email you better. Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. It's the same here. I need to start doing it, and when I get stuck, I'm probably gonna call you or email you.
Thank you so much.
It's a lot of information.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yes, Cyril, I
Yeah.
think once we
Bye.
start doing it, we will have more questions. And
Of
we need-
course, yeah. That's the only way you're going to work through it, is to get your hands on it, and then if you have questions, you email me or whatever you might do. I'll send the different bits and pieces to you so you can have a look at them
Okay,
and
perfect.
use them
Thank you.
as you like.
Perfect.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank
Good night.
you. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.